Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to be telling you all about my health journey, so stay tuned, I'll be right back. Welcome back to The Long Run with Joel and Christy. I'm Joel, flying solo today, and we're going to be talking about my health journey. Okay, so my health journey started about 9 years ago. For most of my life I pretty much ate what I wanted to. Skinny as a rail, things like that. Around the age of 24, 25, I realized that my metabolism was slowing down a little bit, but I didn't really do anything about it. Didn't really care at that point. I really wanted to eat whatever I wanted to, and thought I still could. But slowly I put on a little weight over time, and it just continued to pile up, I guess you might say. In 2010, I had a bout with Bell's palsy, and the whole right side of my face was paralyzed. I couldn't, my eye was shut, my mouth was drooping. It was just not a good time. And I went to the doctor, and up until this time, anytime I'd go to the doctor, they'd take my blood pressure, it would be a little high. But they'd always say, well, it's white coat syndrome because you look like you're in pretty good shape and things like that. It's white coat syndrome. It's got to be that. So every time I'd go, blood pressure would be high, white coat syndrome. So I went to the emergency room for the Bell's palsy, and they took my blood pressure. It was high. They didn't really do anything about it, but they did give me some pills and things to combat the Bell's palsy, and I took those, and they set me up with a follow-up appointment with a doctor, which I didn't have a personal physician at the time, but they set me up with one, and he became my personal physician. And so when I went to see him with the follow-up visit, they took my blood pressure sky high again, and he said, "What's with your blood pressure?" He said it was high in the emergency room. It's high now. It's have you ever had blood pressure problems in the past? I said, not that I know of. I said, anytime I would go, they would tell me that it's white coat syndrome. You get nervous when you go to the doctor, and I'm not really a nervous person, so I don't know why that would be. But I said, it's white coat syndrome. He said, I don't really think it's that. And so he said, because if it was, it would come down, and at some point you wouldn't really have that. And so he did some more tests. My cholesterol was high. My weight was 215 at the time when I went to see the doctor. And what I realized was that I can't carry that kind of weight on my frame. And I am 5'11", and I know some people do carry that kind of weight on their bodies at that height, but I couldn't do it myself. For me, it really was a load for me to carry around. And he didn't put me on a diet. He did put me on blood pressure medications, which brought my blood pressure back down, which he was happy with that. The Bell's palsy lasted about 6 weeks. I still have some effects of that. My eye droops. I don't know if you can notice that right now, but my eye droops, especially when I'm really tired. My eye droop a lot more, and then my eye and the side of my mouth still twitches from time to time to remind me of that time in my life. But it was a time when I realized I couldn't continue like that, and so I didn't really change a lot of stuff, like the way I ate or so like that. I didn't really want to do that. I tried to, and maybe I did eat a few things that were a little more healthier for me. But in our home, we don't demonize food. And so what I did was I chose portion control rather than you can't eat this and you can't eat that. And so I decided to eat a little less at different times. And I also took up running at that time as well. We had some friends that were pretty avid runners, and I would see their posts on Facebook, went out and ran 3 miles today, and you know what? I used to be pretty active. I still play, church league softball and stuff like that. I feel like I could do that. And so I went out one night. I told Christy, I said, hey, I'm going out. I'm just going to go out and run a mile. And so I mapped it off in our little subdivision there, how long a mile was. I ran it in about 11 minutes and came back in the house, and my first Facebook post that night was I ran a mile tonight and didn't have a heart attack and didn't die. So I considered that a success. And so I thought, you know what, I can do that. I think I can get better at this. And so I continued to go out at least once a day. At that point, I was just running a mile in our subdivision. My friends told me, said, look, it's going to be about 6 months before you really love it. And he was right. It took about 6 months of really grinding it out pretty much every day to really love it. But I think one of the things that worked for me is that I set goals for myself. So that first year, I started running in August of 2010, and my first goal was I wanted to run a 5K in October. That was my goal. And so I did and I didn't start running because of my health. I knew that would be a byproduct of running, would be a healthier version of me. But really I started running because all my friends were doing it, and I felt like I could do it better. And so I kept training and kept building up my mileage, and our church held a 5K before that October race that I was running for, and my goal in my first race was to finish under 30 minutes on my 5K. And so I was running 3 or 4 or 5 days a week, and just really training for that. That first 5K that came along in September, I remember it was one of my favorite places to run down at the park. It was about a couple miles from our house, and I remember that 5K, I ran it in 30 minutes and 34 seconds. And so I knew that if I could run that course in 30 minutes and 34 seconds, that there was a great chance that I could run my first 5K in under 30 minutes. And so that day came, I kept training, I kept building up my mileage, I kept trying to build up my speed, and kept going at it. And I remember there was one day before the race, I was going out on a Sunday afternoon with a bunch of our friends, and they were all better runners than me at that point. And I say at that point because now I can look back and say, well, I kind of passed them. Anyway, we went out with a bunch of friends, and they were all faster than me, and I think I started out at the same pace that they did, and about halfway through I was toast. And so one of my friends looked back and saw that I was struggling, and he came back and said, look, you can do this. And so we slowed the pace down a little bit, and he ran with me the rest of the way, and we finished a 3 mile run together. And so that was good. It was helped encourage me along the way. And so I got to the October race, and I was really excited about it, and really, I don't know if I'd really actually grown to love running yet at this point. I was still only about 3 months in, and so, but my goal was to be under 30 minutes, and so the race started, and here we go. We're off, and we're running, and I feel like I've got a pretty good pace going, and I get to the end of the race. I'm making that last turn, coming back up to the finish line. I look at the clock. It's 29 minutes and 20 seconds. And so I gunned it. And I finished in 29 minutes and 42 seconds. And so I finished that was my goal. I finished under 30 minutes. And so I was excited about that. But that really helped me to understand about setting goals. I already knew about setting goals, but setting goals for me personally. And so I set a goal for the next year to run a half marathon. And then the year after that, in 2012, I was going to run my first marathon. So those were my long-term goals. And so running in Tennessee, in Northeast Tennessee during the wintertime is especially tricky because there are some days that it snows, there's some days it rains, some days it's frigidly cold, and sometimes it's just miserable out there. But knowing I had a goal, knowing I had something I had to meet, and knowing I didn't really have access to indoor training facilities that I could really work with, that I went outside when it was raining and when it was cold. I remember one day I was running in the snow. Now, granted, I had on, my frog togs and my winter stuff and running winter clothing and stuff like that. But I did it, and people would see me out there. They'd see me out there in the snow running, and they said, "You know what? You really do like this, don't you?" I said, "Well, I'm getting there." I think that first winter really cemented in my mind my love for running, because I could see myself getting out there and doing it when, everybody else was wanting to stay on the couch by the heater. And so those were kind of my goals to start with, and I began to notice that my health began to get a little better. I'd go back to the doctor and I'd lost, 5 or 10 pounds, and I began to feel better and began to feel better about my life, and just kind of getting those things in order, and really started to, I guess, kind of find my stride, and so to speak, from a runner's perspective. And so I set my goal to run my first half marathon the next year. I did that, finished it. I set a goal the next year to run my first marathon, which was the Chicago Marathon. That's right. If you're going to go big, go for it. Because at that time, Chicago was pretty much open as far as registration goes. As long as you got in time with your registration, you got in. You didn't have to qualify. You didn't have to be in a lottery like you do now. And so I got in on my first shot. As soon as they opened the registration, I was on my computer and I got my registration in. And that year we went to Chicago and I ran the Chicago Marathon. I had a goal. I had a goal of 4 hours and 30 minutes to finish. I didn't quite meet that goal, but I did finish in 4 hours and 44 minutes. And so I was really excited about that, because if you ever run a marathon in a big city, it's quite the experience. And turning on the Michigan Avenue and turning back onto going towards the finish in the Chicago Marathon was really a treat. It was something spectacular for me. Just hearing the people cheering for you, and you have 2 million spectators in Chicago, and they're all rooting for you, because every time you pass somebody, they're cheering for you. And so that was exciting to be able to finish my first marathon. I really thought I was done with marathons after that. But what they say, don't make plans, and I made plans not to run another one, but I wound up also running a few more. And so I began to notice that my health began to get better, and I still hadn't really changed the way I ate. We changed some things that we ate at home. But then 2013, when I lost my job, we went back to eating cheaper things, cheaper processed foods and stuff like that. And I saw my weight begin to plateau. And so when my weight began to plateau, I began to think, I'm doing all this running, and my weight's not, I'm not taking any more off. I had stopped, I plateaued around 200. I ran my first marathon, I was 201 pounds. I remember that. And so, you're thinking if you shed another 10 pounds, you could probably shave off another 15, 20 minutes off your time. And so we began to think about, well, what is it? What is it that's causing this plateau in my life? And, why is my health not getting any better? And so we realized that the processed foods that we were eating, the cheaper foods that we were eating, were contributing to our, at least to my plateau. And so we began to look for options to not only be healthy, but also to spend healthy and to do it on a budget. And so Christy began looking at all these things and all these recipes and things. We started doing some different things to help spur that. When I got back to work with the company that I'm with now, I've worked for a couple of different franchises in this company, and we made a move here to Houston. After we first got here, the transition was pretty big between our move from Tennessee to here, and for probably about a year, I didn't do a lot of running. My weight was still plateaued around 190, 200, and So I decided that next March we kind of found our groove there in the business, and finally got some people in that could help us get things going and keep it going, and gave me a little more free time. And so I decided that if I was going to start running again, so I did. And so I signed up for a race in March, which was the Bayou City Classic. I told myself I was going to do it, I was going to do it. And so January of that year, I started training again for the Bayou City Classic. And one of the reasons I did that was because I watched the Houston Marathon, the Chevron Houston Marathon. I watched it on TV that year. I'm thinking, you know what? I can do that. I've ran a marathon before, and it's right here in my town. I don't even have to drive or fly to get there. And so I said, well, I can do that. So I signed up for the Bayou City Classic just to kind of get back in the groove, and started training again. I was kind of hit and miss with my running. I just kind of fitted in where I could. I really wasn't much of I want to get up really, really early and go exercise and stuff like that. And but I began to see some of the benefits, and I realized that this helter-skelter kind of training was not helping me much, because if I could push it off, then I would. And so I made a determination in my mind, if I was going to train, I was going to do this, I was going to do it right. And so I started making it a point that no matter what time I go to bed at night, I'm always up. On my running days, I'm always up by 4 a.m. By 4 a.m., I'm always up. If I got to run that day, then I'm out the door by 5, no later than 5, especially if it's a longer run. And so running here on the streets of Houston are pretty good. We do have a gym here in our apartment complex, but running on the streets here in Houston has caused me to loathe the treadmill. And so I can just walk out of our apartment, run up the street. I've got a couple of routes that I have drawn out that I run, and that discipline has helped me, because I've run the Bayou City Classic. I run the Bud Heat Wave here over in Baytown and now Mount Bellevue, and so I set my goal to run the Houston Marathon the next year. And so I began training for that, getting up early on my running days, doing my long runs early on Sunday mornings. And even on my day off, I'm getting up at 4 a.m. and going out and doing my long runs. Because when I do a 20-mile run, it's going to take me at least 2.5, 3 hours to do it. And I don't want it to ruin the rest of my day. And so I'm getting up, running early, and then getting back to do the rest of the things that I want to do. And what I began to see was getting into that routine and finding those healthy alternatives. I still eat what I want to. I eat fast food every day because that's my job, that's my life, and it's free when I'm at work. And so that's what I eat for lunch every day. And so I tell people that I've been on that fast food diet for 3 years, and I've lost 40 pounds, which I have. And so went down from 215 at my lowest. At my lowest, I weighed 168 pounds. I've put on a little bit back since then, probably about 8 or 9, 10 pounds. And right now I'm at 175, 176, depending on which day of the week it is, probably. But I'm really finding that I really found that having that routine of getting up every day and getting that done, and then looking for those alternatives, those eating healthy on a budget, finding those things that you can do, that you can make that's fairly cheap, but it's still good for you, has helped me to drop those last 20 pounds that I was looking for. I like where I am now. I mean, I would like to be, I tell Chrissy all the time I'd like to be 165, but she doesn't think I should be there. But I like where I am. I'm at a good weight right now, and I really feel good. I tell people all the time I feel better now than I did when I was in my 20s. And so I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but I'm a little bit older than 20. And so to say all of that, I say this, is that if you're looking to live healthy on a budget, set goals for yourself. Say, I want to do this. I ran the Houston Marathon in 2018. I ran it again in 2019, and I've run 3 marathons in the last year and a half. I'm coming up on my 5th overall, which will be November the 3rd on the New York City Marathon. I'll be running that on November the 3rd, and so I'm excited about that. But that'll be 4 marathons in less than 2 years. And so I say that to say, set goals for yourself. Push yourself to see what you can do. I was thinking this morning on my 6-mile run that there's really no limits to what our bodies can do if we train them correctly. And so, just saying, from a person that's lost 40 pounds and kept it off over the last 9 years, you can do it. For the person that said, you know what, I don't know that I could run a mile. Well, I didn't think I could run a mile either when I started, but you can do it. Set goals for yourself. Write down on paper the things that you want in life, whether it's running or whether it's eating healthy or whether it's budgeting or whatever it is, whatever you want to do, set goals for yourself, and then formulate a plan to reach those goals. Promise you, in the long run, it'll be worth it. Thanks for joining me today on The Long Run with Joel and Chrissy. Me flying solo today. So if you see a video around, maybe it's here, or here, I don't know, click on it and watch some of our other episodes. Also, like and subscribe to our videos. If you see the bell, click it so that you can get updates on new content and things like that. And comment below with a running emoji. Let me know what you're doing as far as running goes, as far as your health journey. Let us know what you're doing. Comment below and then like and subscribe our page. And we'll see you until next time. See you later.